Hey, pour yourself something to drink before we start this one. Water, ideally, because that's kind of what we're going to be getting into today. Water and who gets it and who gets to know what's happening to it before decisions are made for them. So I want to start with something that sounds pretty obvious, but somehow keeps not being obvious enough. Clean, accessible water is not a luxury. It's not a perk. It's not a bonus or feature of being alive. It's literally the baseline we all need to survive. Water is life. And yet, depending on where you live, what your zip code is, who your neighbors are, and whether your community has a lobbyist or a city council that actually shows up for the people, your relationship to water can look completely different from somebody an hour down the road. There are people in this state, in this country, who turn on a tap and water comes out the color of like brewed tea. There's families buying bottled water as a permanent line item in the grocery budget. There's farm workers and agricultural workers who grow the food that we eat who don't even have safe drinking water in their own homes. That's not even touching the issues that we have of indigenous water access in the United States. And this is not a developing world problem. That's a here problem, a now problem. The reality is that clean water connects to everything else that we talk about, everything else that we do on a daily basis. The soil, the food, the animals, the climate. You cannot have a healthy food system on top of a poisoned water table. You cannot ask people to compost and grow native and reduce their footprint while their kids are drinking nitrates. The conversation has to be whole. So here's kind of where I want to take this, because clean water doesn't just show up. Decisions do get made about it, about wells, about runoff, about pipelines, about who pays and which neighborhoods get the upgrade and which ones get the press release. And those decisions happen in rooms, public rooms, boards, councils, water districts, planning commissions. And in California, there are versions of this in every state, by the way. There's a law called the Brown Act, the Ralph M. Brown Act. And here's a line from the law itself. I personally think a lot about it, especially right now. And it says basically, the people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. Read that again. The people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for people to know and what is not good for them to know. That's a radical sentence hiding inside of a piece of government code. And what it means in practice is that agendas have to be posted 72 hours before a regular meeting, 24 hours before a special meeting, and the public has to be able to see what's being decided, and they have to be able to show up. They have to be able to comment, and this is the most important part. The decisions cannot be vague to the point of misleading. You can't agenda item something as flood control when really voting on whether or not to exempt a river from protection. The notice has to actually inform. And starting in 2026, the law is being modernized, so bigger agencies have to provide hybrid meetings, real-time captioning, language access for communities that don't traditionally show up. Because what good is a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, 25 miles away from the communities that they're impacting? Or at 2 or 3 in the afternoon on a weekday and in English only, in a building 30 miles away that has no childcare? That's notification on paper. That's not notification in practice. And in this farmer's opinion, it's morally repugnant. So here's where I want to connect the dots, because I think we sometimes treat these as separate movements, and they're not separate. People are out here fighting for accessible food, for farmers markets that take SNAP, for school lunches that are not industrialized waste, for community gardens, for the right to grow on your own land without being zoned out of existence. Good, necessary. People are fighting on climate, for emissions cuts, for clean energy, for protecting the land, and for accountability from the companies that are poisoning our air. Good, necessary. Notification. Being told in time, in your language, in a format that you can actually access what your government is about to do. That's the same fight. because every food policy, every climate decision, every water allocation passes through one of these public meetings. And if you're not in the room, or you're in the room, but the agenda was written to obscure what was actually happening, the decision still gets made. It just gets made without you. Access to information is access to power, and realistic notification, meaning notification that a working person, a non-English speaker, a parent, a farm worker, a renter who just moved in, somebody who has 3 jobs and 4 kids and is a single parent caregiving for their mom, those are things that they could actually receive and act on. And it's not a courtesy, it is a right. The law literally says it is a right. So the question is whether it's being honored. So then what do we do with all of this? I think we do a few things. First up, find out who runs your water. And I mean, seriously, most people cannot name their water district. And sometimes those are mouthfuls, so I get it. So look it up, find their meeting schedule, sign up for their agenda notifications. It takes less than 10 minutes. 2, when something on that agenda looks vague, ask questions. Public comment is your right. 3 minutes at a microphone changes more than people think, partly because most board members are stunned that anyone showed up at all. And honestly, you might feel like it doesn't make a difference, but it does. And when you speak, somebody else gets the courage to speak. And when that person gets the courage to speak, 2 more people, and then 3 more people, and then 4 more people, and then more people participate. 3, push for the modernization, hybrid meetings, translation, evening hours, and childcare. If your local agency isn't doing it, that's a thing to organize around. The law is moving in that direction because communities have to make sure that it actually lands on something that they need and makes it accessible for them to attend. 4, talk about it. Bring it up the way that you bring up where your eggs come from, hopefully from us, or what you're composting. Hopefully you're composting with us. Or what you're doing about your lawn. Like, discuss the things that you are doing to get healthier, discuss the plants that you're growing, and discuss this the same way. Make notification a normal part of the conversation because it is the conversation. It's the doorway to every other conversation that walks through it. So for clean water, a real seat at the table, and a government that tells you in real time what it's about to do that impacts you, in a language and format that you can actually use. None of that is asking too much. All of it is already promised on paper. It's promised in the law, and we just have to keep insisting that they make it happen. And thank you for listening to Manure Maiden. Drink your water, read your agendas, and I'll see you next time.